Before we highlight the best and most challenging car shipping locations in this state, generally speaking, the best car shipping locations are going to be the biggest cities, followed by those locations on or near interstates. You'll have the quickest and least expensive auto transports from these locations. The most challenging car shipping locations are going to be in remote towns and cities. These are towns and cities that are more than 50 miles away from major cities or interstates. It takes more time and costs more money to ship a car to or from these remote locations. With these general guidelines in mind, let's look at the best and most challenging car shipping locations in this state. All right, as we take a look at the state of Minnesota, there are essentially 3 trucking corridors in the state, and anything along those interstates are going to be fairly decent shipping locations. And so it starts with I-94 that runs through the state. There's I-35, and there is I-90 in the far southern part of the state. Those are the 3 main interstates in the state that you want to stay along for the best car shipping locations. But your absolute best car shipping location is going to be the Minneapolis-St. Paul metro area, or better known as the Twin Cities. Anything in there is going to be fantastic to ship cars to or from because it's the state's largest metropolitan area, and it's served by I-94 and I-35, which are 2 incredibly busy trucking corridors. Your next best car shipping location is going to be in central Minnesota as we head west along I-94, and that's going to be the city of St. Cloud. That is your next best location. And then as we head south, not shown on the map here, is the city of Albert Lea, which is right along I-35 and I-90. And then finally, rounding up the best car shipping locations in Minnesota is going to be in southeastern Minnesota, and that's going to be the city of Rochester. It's just off of I-90, which is another busy trucking corridor in the state. And so to go up into Rochester is a breeze because for all intents and purposes, it is pretty much off of I-90. Now, as we switch to the more challenging car shipping locations in the state, basically anything north of St. Cloud is going to be challenging, but your best northern Minnesota shipping options are going to be first Moorhead, Minnesota, or the Fargo-Moorhead area is what they call it. Fargo is in North Dakota, but then it's right next to Moorhead, which is across the state border in Minnesota. So Fargo, North Dakota, Moorhead, Minnesota, they call that the Fargo-Moorhead area. That's going to be a challenging location in most cases. We find that anything going to or from Moorhead, Minnesota, or the Fargo-Moorhead area is challenging. Again, what we mean by challenging is that these transports take more time and money to complete than, if you go to the more friendly locations in the state. But as far as your northern Minnesota transport options, Moorhead's going to be your best bet because it is served by I-29 and I-94. Those are 2, decent trucking corridors in that area. And so it's not terribly difficult for car carriers to get to that area. But again, car carriers are just not going to Moorhead on a regular basis, or the Fargo-Moorhead area on a regular basis. And then on the eastern side of the state, you have the city of Duluth, which is along I-35. Again, unless you have a carrier that is regularly going from the Twin Cities up into Duluth and back, and there are some carriers that run that route, Duluth is kind of an out-of-the-way location. But again, as far as your northern transport options, Duluth and Moorhead, or the Fargo-Moorhead area, are going to be your best options. But again, they're still not ideal, and we would still consider those as challenging locations. But your absolute most challenging location is going to be, if I draw a line from Fargo-Moorhead over to Duluth, anything north of this line, particularly the further north you go As you get up into far, far northern Minnesota, those especially become challenging because, as you can see here, there's just not much up here. Sparsely populated towns, lots of water, so lots of green, and just no reason for car carriers to be up in this part of Minnesota on a regular basis, so those transports typically take more time and money to complete. To find out what it costs to ship a car to or from Minnesota, get an instant quote on our website at www.jnstransport.com.